right, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this Friday morning. My name is Alexis Rogers. I'm the Virginia State Director for Care in Action. Care in Action is a nonprofit, nonpartisan group dedicated to fighting for dignity and fairness for the millions of domestic workers in the United States, including 60,000 right here in the Commonwealth. We know that everyone deserves equality, safety, and dignity at work. But working people's voices and experiences have confirmed that workplaces, whether that is a farm, a boardroom, or a movie set, that they present challenges and risk factors for harassment. And some are particularly vulnerable because they are a minority in the workforce, they work in isolated conditions, they rely on customer tips, or they have been historically excluded from critical civil rights and labor protections. While all workers may experience harassment, people of color, LGBTQIA people, immigrants, these are some of the most vulnerable to harassment and discrimination at work. So we know last year 2 women bravely came forward and made allegations of sexual harassment and assault against Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax, who we would recognize as the second most powerful man in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Following their accusations, Lieutenant Governor Fairfax made harmful statements about them and their credibility on social media, to the media, and in many public forums. This week, in a radio interview, Senator Joe Morrissey said, and I quote, "I don't believe the women. I just flat out said it. I'm not one of these folks I'm afraid of offending the Me Too movement. Not only is Justin Fairfax innocent, but she lied." He went on to say that he intends today to deliver a floor speech on this topic. So ahead of that, I want to be very clear, and I want to say something directly to Lieutenant Governor Fairfax and to Senator Morrissey. Your job as elected officials is to protect the interests of Virginians, and that includes all people in the state, that includes survivors of harassment and assault. Your actions and your words are dangerous, and they run the risk of chilling the ability for survivors to come forward, to disclose crimes like sexual harassment, like rape, and other issues. So we are here today, and I'm really grateful for all of the folks standing here with me, because we must speak out when we see the type of behavior that Lieutenant Governor Fairfax and Senator Morrissey are displaying. No one in position of power, whether it be an employer, a faith leader, an elected official, a politician, a professor, should perpetuate a culture of harassment and bullying that silences women. Care in Action is an organization who works, again, on behalf of 2 million domestic workers who are mostly women of color and immigrant women. And every day we are fighting to elevate those voices of women who often feel invisible and unheard. Women, especially Black women, are more vulnerable to sexual violence and remain silent rather than reporting because they are afraid that their voices might not be heard and that the law enforcement system will not do anything to help them. Women stay silent because our society continually reinforces the idea that the voices of Black women do not matter. And women stay silent because politicians have created policies and protected systems that provide protection for the person responsible for assault instead of the survivor. This has to stop. So today, we are calling on the Democratic Party, our friends in the legislature, to speak up. The silence has instilled a belief and a feeling that other women who could come forward, or who have come forward, are not believed and are not credible. We need our elected officials and our Democratic Party leaders and all community leaders to stand with us, to stand with Black women, and to believe survivors. We demand that a code of conduct with clear sanctions be adopted to bring real accountability measures against lawmakers who have been found to have violated this code. And we demand that both Lieutenant Governor Fairfax and Senator Morrissey issue a public apology for their actions, not to mention to immediately stop this bullying, the harassment, and the disparagement of accusers. So with that, I want to thank Rupa Murthy from YWCA Richmond for being here, and I'll turn the stage to her.
Thank you, Alexis. I'm Rupa Murthy. I'm here with the YWCA Richmond. The YWCA starts by believing survivors of sexual violence. 1 in 2 women have experienced some type of sexual violence or rape in their lifetimes, and 8 out of 10 assaults are committed by somebody the survivor knows. So to be clear, sexual assault is never the survivor's fault. This form of violence manifests in communities through social norms and is motivated by a power dynamic used to control, humiliate, and harm. Those who experience violence face many barriers to resources and safety. It is incumbent upon all of us to use our power and our privilege we have to support those who are assaulted or harassed, hold those who assault accountable, and create workspaces that do not tolerate sexual harassment or assault. This is not a new issue, but this is a new moment. And more importantly, it is a new opportunity to advance safety, justice, and gender equity. Richmond, YWCA Richmond and our sister agencies across Central Virginia provide resources for survivors here in Virginia. And we are court advocates, we are workforce navigators, we are shelter providers, and mental health counselors. And if you are a survivor of sexual violence, if you are, please know that you are not alone. You can call the 24-hour Greater Richmond Regional Hotline at 804-612-6126. Thank you all. Lisette?
Good morning. My name is Reverend Lisette Cross. I am the pastor of Restoration Fellowship, RBA. We are a justice-affirming faith community here in the Central Richmond area, and our purpose and point is to hold space for all of those that are on a faith and spiritual journey. It is clear that the most powerful moment in the life of a survivor is that motivating spark to move from silence to voice. It is in that moment where we, the community, get to experience the power of what it means to stand in one's truth, to be for resilience, and to know and to let others know that their story is true. We come together today to not only believe Black women, but to believe all survivors of sexual violence. But most importantly, we gather today to recognize and hold witness to the power of healing that is possible within our communities, the need for us to hold space for one another, the requirement of us to call on our elected officials to do better, and essentially to ask our faith leaders to continue to create churches, spiritual communities, and faith spaces where we can lean into our truth, where we can hold space for one another, and where we as survivors can find our healing. It is in this moment where we stand with and believe Black women. We're in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and dare we say in this nation, that it is on the backs of Black women that our democratic system has turned toward good. Dare we say that in the Commonwealth of Virginia, that it is because we can believe Black women that we stand in solidarity with LGBTQIA folks, Indigenous women, people and individuals who are gender nonconforming, and all others who remain on the margins and who remain to be silenced by those in power, by those who misuse their power, and by those who think that their platform would be so strong to silence the voices, to silence the ones of allies, the voices of survivors, the voices of people of good moral courage, and strong faith-believing Christians, strong religious and faith-believing Muslims and Jews and all individuals of faith. And so we stand, even in the words of our beloved Whitney Houston, as we continue to believe Black women, and in her words, hold our heads up high, realize that we were not meant nor built to break, that there are moments like this where we do not even know our own strength, to stand in the face of the Lieutenant Governor Fairfax and Senator Joe Morrissey, to speak our truths, to stand firm in the hopes in our hearts, to connect as allies and as resources, and to find the light of life that resides in each of us. So allow us, individually, collectively, organizationally, to find our own strength and to continue to stand firm, to believe Black women, and create healing communities for all survivors. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Julia Billingsley, and I was serving as a staff member in the office of the Lieutenant Governor last February when I learned of the accusations of sexual assault perpetrated by Justin Fairfax. The week separating Dr. Vanessa Tyson's and Meredith Watson's allegations was one of immense confusion and pain as I tried to reconcile the experiences these women were sharing with the individual I considered a leader, a friend, someone for whom I was proud to have worked. I mostly couldn't find any words, but I listened. And what I heard were the attempts to silence and discredit survivors. It was gut-wrenching, but all too familiar. These defense mechanisms are symptoms of a society that is still struggling to confront those that commit acts of violence and failing to hold them accountable for their actions. Instead, we should often enshrine these perpetrators in positions of power. In particular, the intersection of race and gender is a crux that we continue to shy away from addressing as a society, too often at the expense of women of color. Over 1 year later, I continue to wrestle with the complicated emotions of that week and the year that has followed my resignation. I believe Dr. Vanessa Tyson. I believe Meredith Watson. 1 year later, I continue to stand with these survivors. This is too important to stay silent. While I'm here, I would also like to share some words from my colleague. A friend, a mentor, a fellow survivor, Adele McClure was serving as Lieutenant Governor's Policy Director last February when we resigned jointly. Her speech at last April's Take Back the Night rally encapsulates the work left to be done in believing and providing support for survivors. These words echo in my head time and time again. In those moments, I wondered, if my abuser were ever elected to public office and I decided to speak out, how would I be treated? Would people attempt to label me as crazy? As a partisan pawn?